Matthew, it's podcast 29 and we have a special show today.
Yeah, we certainly do. We have a chat with the director of Last Man on the Moon, Mark Craig.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
Firstly, what an amazing film. Anyone who hasn't seen it, please check it out. I think it's on Netflix for maybe another month, but you can still buy it on DVD and Blu-ray. It's absolutely fantastic, so for sure check that out if you haven't. And we talked to Mark Craig, the director, an absolutely lovely guy, fantastic director. He's got several films that you should definitely check out, but we talked to him about The Last Man on the Moon. Can you explain to us, Matt, a bit about that before the interview starts?
It's a really lovely interview, and obviously we're going to be playing it in a second, but my favourite moment was that we sat through a little talk by Mark that he gave to the British Interplanetary Society, and right at the end there was a question and answer section, and one of the questions right at the end, which was a very good question actually, was by Marcus Allen, our guest from last week. And
it was.
And the answer was really, really funny, because halfway through he says, "Of course, we're not those kind of nutters who don't believe that we're not that we didn't go to the moon." And you can imagine Jamie and I were giggling at the back. It was fantastic.
My jaw dropped. I thought it was absolutely
I was
wonderful.
Teasing Marcus about this later
it.
on, and I said it's because he's part of the Illuminati and knows what you know, and that was his secret message to him. And then I realised, no, actually, this might be feeding into his psychosis. So
definitely don't do that.
I was a bit worried. So we're back to sanity this week, and thank you very much for everyone's emails that came in.
Yeah, we got a lot of people saying that they really enjoyed it, and they don't know how we held our tongue, let's just say. But as we said before, Marcus is a lovely guy. He just doesn't think the same as us. Let's put it that way.
And I think that there is a place for people questioning conspiracy theorists.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to do it too often. It has its time and its place. And this week we're resuming normal service.
Normal service, please.
So with that, I think we should just go straight to our interview with the delightful and lovely, what a lovely man this guy is, and very talented, Mark Craig.
Here we go.
Today's guest is Mark Craig, the award-winning director of the fantastic Last Man on the Moon. Mark's solid direction and Gene Cernan's warm, articulate and insightful presence make this one of our favourite films about the US space programme. So I'd like to welcome Mark Craig onto the show.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Mark.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
I understand that the film Last Man on the Moon was inspired by Gene Cernan's autobiography of the same name. Did you read a lot of space books, and what was it about Cernan's book that really stood out to you?
Well, I did read a lot of space books, actually. I mean, I was reading space books when I was a kid, because I was 9 years old when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, 12 when Gene Cernan walked on the moon. And, of course, that was a pretty big deal for any kid that was around at the time. So, I had all the books and the Airfix models and all the, paraphernalia that goes with what was then the space age. And I guess that interest has always been there, and it had lain dormant for quite some time until, by chance, at a party, I met the author, Andrew Smith, and he had just written Moon Dust. And I read that book, and I guess something was really reawakened in me. Yeah. And I started buying all the other astronaut autobiographies on Amazon, and I read Gene Kranz's Failure is Not an Option, Tom Stafford's We Have Capture, Mike Collins' great book, Carrying the Fire, and others. And, of course, I eventually stumbled across Gene Cernan's book, The Last Man on the Moon. And I think it was, before I'd even got halfway through it, I had become so gripped by it as a story, and not just as a story, but the way he was telling it in such a personal and charismatic and dramatic way, that I just forgot about being a casual space fan and switched back into filmmaker mode, and thought I've got to send him an email to see if I can convince him to make a film.
Well, we were just about to say, how did you approach him? So the first bit was an email. Had you already had a relationship with him before then, or did you go in cold, or was there an introduction that you knew someone that knew him? It was just a straight.
I went in solo, absolutely ice cold.
Okay, all right.
I'd never met him. The only place I thought of sending an email to was the book's publisher, who were based in New York. Mm-hmm. That elicited a phone conversation, and they basically said, "Look, you better speak to the chap who represents him, because he has legal counsel." And I ended up engaging in dialogue with him for some time, and then we set up the conference call with Gene. As it happened, he was coming over to London in a couple of months' time from that time, and we're talking 2006 here at this point, 2007. And so I got to meet him over breakfast for an hour and talk about, this film that I'd wanted to make about him, and he had a whole ton of questions for me. I learned from the first meeting that he gives a lot of attention to detail. He like being a military man. He kind of likes a mission,
Right.
And he wanted to know all the facts, and then he processed those facts, and then.
So it wasn't just that he said, "Yeah, let's do it. You call the shots."
Oh no! Right. He didn't just say, "Let's do it." It was a good initial meeting, and he said, I'm doing this thing in Washington DC, you might want to come over, and basically what he was alluding to was he was being awarded the Wright Brothers Memorial Trophy. Wow. In 2007 on the what was the, I think, 35th anniversary of his last steps, December the 14th. And so I went over there, met his family, met his friends, met his lawyer, and that, up the ante a little bit, and so it went on.
When I've got this theory, and I always, when I talk to my friends, I always say this, that if you're an Apollo astronaut and you've been to the moon, that you can walk into the room with, it doesn't matter who's in the room, if it's Paul McCartney, Elton John, or anything like that. As an Apollo astronaut, you walk into the room and it's like you're now top dog because I've been to the moon. So presumably you hung out with Gene Cernan for a long time. Did you ever get a sense of that, of when he walked into a room, that the whole atmosphere changing, or did he come across as just a normal bloke?
Well, both really. I mean, he is a normal bloke, or was a normal bloke. But when he walked into the room, there was certainly some electricity, and I felt it. And I think it was just, the idea that only 12 people have walked on the surface of another body in the universe, as he called it. And of course, that is a very special achievement, which does trump all your Mick Jaggers and your McCartneys and a number of politicians I could name. They are all-time rock stars, and so he carried that pretty well. But he never forgot where he came from. He was also a very grounded individual, but very disciplined. He a lot of time in the military, so he could switch it on, do what he had to do at a corporate event or at public speaking, or if there was a formality of some description, he could do that. But he loved to just get his tie off and just hang in the bar and chat like one of the guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
we had the pleasure of interviewing Al Worden, who was on Apollo 15.
Yeah.
And
similar
amazing.
Sort of thing.
Yeah,
well. Similar kind of character in many ways. I've been present at one of Al Warden's talks. He's great.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant. We were shaking before we met him. I think just like this guy's been to the moon. What do you say?
Yeah.
But I wanted to speak about a Chris Hadfield quote. He said that exploration is fundamental to human nature, and it's why we walk before we can talk when we're young. What do you think about the state of space exploration at the moment, considering that we haven't been to the moon in 50 years?
Well, I agree with this statement. I think we are all hardwired in our DNA to certainly us cavemen to go wandering off, and trying to find,
There's a mountain I'll climb.
exactly, or food, or some valley over the hill where something might be better. But I think it's that sort of instinct in us that has led to all kinds of incredible explorations over the years, and the moon is just about the icing on the cherry on top of the icing on the cake. Yeah. But what do I think? I think anybody that was around at the time, it seemed, and I remember this as a kid when I was 12, 13, it just seemed like anything was possible. And I remember my teacher telling me, he goes, "You kids are really lucky, by the time you're my age, you're going to be having holidays in space, you'll probably go to the moon, It just seemed like that rate of progress was just going to continue, but of course it never did. Now, in terms of exploration, I mean, there has been fantastic robotic exploration of space. We've gone to Mars, we've gone to the moons of Jupiter, and of course landed on meteorites and all kinds of stuff. And that's great, but it's manned exploration that really gets people excited. And Gene Cernan knew that. Gene Cernan was a man who just really wasn't interested in orbiting Earth for hundreds of days. That would have driven him mad. He just didn't want to do that, and he did that 50 years ago. He's only one of very few people who could talk that kind of language, because I think most people would kill to orbit around the planet Earth for a few days or weeks. But he was very much of the feeling that no, we've done that and been there, and we've been much further than that. We need to go even further. And he always used to say this. He always used to say, it's great that we got Curiosity driving around on Mars, but nobody ever gave a robot a ticker tape parade.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the human endeavour. It's when people know that there's a human being sitting on top of that rocket, risking his life to be fired into space and for things to maybe go wrong, that gets people.
So when
really
Elon
excited.
mentioned going to Mars a while back, I mean, I don't know when he would have started talking about it.
Yeah, I think.
Would that?
Actually, that was before. Yeah, Gene.
I mean, did Gene ever mention Elon Musk and what he was planning to do? Did he ever talk about that, or
he was cautious about naming names, if you like,
right.
I mean, but he more than anybody understood that certainly things were different in his era. It was very much space race, and Russia and America were the superpowers, leading the way. He understood that, if any space exploration was going to happen in the future, it was going to be a multinational effort. That's just the way it's probably going to happen, for financial reasons, diplomatic reasons, all kinds of reasons, really, shared knowledge. But in terms of Mars, he was beginning to read things like, people were volunteering for a one-way mission and they could get him there, but they couldn't get him back. He didn't really buy into that. He goes, that's not, that's not what it's about,
There's a philosophical point to this, which I think you've alluded to, is the fact that, because at the moment we're tackling moon hoaxes on the podcast. We had a quite famous, a reasonably infamous guy, Marcus Allen, on last week, talking about the moon conspiracies, essentially. He's obviously on the lunatic side of moon conspiracy. And I think that those moon hoaxes exist because we've somehow lost our urge to be explorers, and that if we became explorers again, the society would sort of peel away from society. Does that make sense? And is this something that Gene ever spoke about? Was the kind of moon hoax? Did you ever get a sense of frustration about that from him?
I think he was beyond frustration, really. He'd be, he's had people thrusting Bibles into his hand, saying, "Swear, you went," and all this kind of stuff, and people challenging, and of course, if that happens often enough, and all of the moonwalkers had to suffer that, and Buzz Aldrin famously punched somebody for it, So that was a real drag, but I think he then came round to just accept that some people just, wouldn't believe, and But he says, you know what, Mark? That they just really missed out on something that was just one of the greatest achievements that humanity has ever done, and they just missed out in sharing that.
Yeah, well, that might be part of the reason why they do it, mightn't it?
And where do they think we went? He said, there was nearly 1 million people down at the Cape for Apollo 17's launch. And they saw this giant thing going up and deep into, what do they think we'd do, The Russians wouldn't have let them get away with hosting.
That's the big one, is the Russians
they were
clearly would have blown the whistle.
Yeah, of course, they would track them all the way.
Of course, it surely would have turned up in WikiLeaks for us.
No, but I mean...
we know that it's ridiculous, but I'm talking more about the psychology of... And I think that it's definitely got something to do with the fact that as a world, we're slightly more introspective now, aren't we, in terms of...
I think we are.
Great, and it's great watching the Last Man on the Moon. One of the things that I really loved is that seeing all those people, Gene Cernan and his friends, just how brilliant their whole outlook on life is. It's so refreshing in a world that's turned in on itself in some ways.
Yeah, and if you remember Kennedy's speech, well, you won't remember it because
I've seen it quite a few times.
But we were running around in nappies at the time, or I was. But obviously he issued the challenge to go to the moon. But he also said, to the American people, ask what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you, kind of thing. And I think post-war there was very much a generation of go-getters who were wanting to be the best they could be and be their country to be the best it could be, and they all had that mindset. And I've heard Gene Kranz, the famous flight director, say exactly what you've said. He goes, after that achievement and when the 70s came along, people did get a lot more introspective and inward looking, and sometimes you just got to do something for the greater good, and maybe that good is going to be beyond your lifetime. But unless we lay the foundations for the future and stop living sort of just for the short term, then how can we as a species keep evolving onwards and onwards?
There's a great quote about, I think it's, a society grows great when old men plant trees in which shade they know they'll never sit in.
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing for our grandkids? You know what I mean?
Well, it's a mixed bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's obviously some great stuff going on, but there's, some seriously big challenges for the world leaders at the moment. Some of whom are the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
What was your favourite moment of the time? Because you spent quite a lot of time with Gene Cernan. What was your favourite moment with Gene Cernan? And have you got any exclusives that you're going to be sharing with the BIS tonight?
I've probably got one or two anecdotes that will make people laugh and shouldn't go beyond the four walls of the BIS.
Yeah.
I'll just deny everything. But in terms of the favourite moment during filming, I mean, there really are, quite a few. I think my favourite moments was when he and his good friend Fred Baldwin got together, because they had an incredible chemistry. Fred Baldwin, or Baldy as he's known in the film, an old naval aviator buddy of his. They were friends for 50 odd years, and whenever they got together, it was just like they were 25 again, busting each other's chops.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is really, that's one of the best bits of the film.
And that was a gift for the film. I mean, with documentaries you can sort of plan so much, but you can't. Plan.
There's a brilliant bit where he's kind of teasing him, and then they have a hug at the end. It's just like, I love you, mate.
But they always do that.
Really
they were always doing that. That was their double act, and so it was very entertaining to just be around them when they did that, both off and on camera. They didn't do that just for camera.
It's something I noticed about your style was the fact that a lot of those films about space are obviously about the monumental scientific achievement and all those kind of things, but this definitely had a much more intimate feel to it, a much more personal story. Did you set out right from the beginning to make it more intimate and more personal?
Well, I don't have a monumental scientific brain, so that rules that option out.
But you're really emotional.
No, but I am. I'm sensitive to the human emotion and the journey, we all go on. And like I said, I come from an arts background, not a science background. I make films most definitely with my heart, not my head. And, I'm not a specialist in space at all. I've made films of all kinds of extraordinary people. Some are famous and some are not, but there's something about the change over the course of time that we all go through, which I'm constantly drawn to. Yeah. And so, as well as wanting to tell Gene's story back in the day, I was also wanting this kind of parallel narrative of his life today, of what it means to be an old man looking back at that time, and how little things just trigger old memories. And so it was very much a twin narrative of past and present. And that's something I like to do in all my films. And certainly I'm on the lookout for, humour, pathos, something a little bit philosophical maybe. But what I really hate is a narrator or a voiceover telling the audience what to think. I'd rather just serve up, the people who were part of whatever story it was, and we can all just go on that ride with him, and we can all feel what we feel individually.
Actually, that is the greatest thing about any art, isn't it? Just letting you decide. You know?
But what a gift Gene Cernan was in terms of his ability to tell his own story is fantastic. Really
for sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean the book blew me away. That's what made me think. I read the book and I thought, here's a guy I can work with, because it just seemed to marry up in my head, the way I like to make films.
Yeah.
Did you see any other space documentaries that inspired you not to do it, but were there other space documentaries that you admire, that you really like?
Well, of course, I went out of my way to watch as many space docs as I could. Going right back from some of the archive films of the 60s through to For All Mankind. I loved In the Shadow of the Moon, which came out, just as I was trying to get this film together. So all of those, went into the melting pot. But of course, I wanted to make a film that was nothing like anything that had been made before. And I certainly didn't want to go down the old well-trodden path of the Discovery channels or the science series that you see. Fantastic as they are, but I wasn't interested in the thrust of the engine and the density of the rock or whatever. It is absolutely a human story that I was after.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, one of my favourite bits of the film is the bit where Gene's contemplating whether it was a dream or not, where he's leaning into the capsule that's in the museum, and he's talking about whether it's a dream, and he wonders if his story is going to last 100 years or 1,000 years. And I think that's like such a brilliant, poignant bit of the film. And what I actually like about the film is the fact that now you've told his story, it is actually more likely to last 1,000 years. It'd be really great to think that that's part of the story and will go on as a...
Well, I like to think that some exhibits in museums or fantastic sites like the pyramids at Giza, I mean, they're not going to just bulldoze them down, are they? They're just part of incredible history, and all of that Apollo hardware distributed in museums around, America and our one here.
He was in the Apollo.
He was in Apollo 10, which we have in the Science Museum.
Fastest man ever.
I mean, they're not going to take it to a breaker's yard and crush it, are they? So how long is it going to be kept? I mean, forever, really. Why would you not keep it? Gene very much had a sense of where he was in space and time. And all of us are here for a relatively short period of time, and he's been out into deep space and just seen the really big picture for a short time, and of course, has got a perspective on it that we can all learn from.
Yeah. Just out of interest, how did you choose the music for the film? Was there a certain composer that you wanted to work with, or...?
Well, interestingly, the first bit of music that I knew I absolutely wanted to use was the track that we used during the Apollo 10 transposition and docking sequence. Going back one from there, I mean, I was very inspired by Stanley Kubrick and 2001: A Space Odyssey, and of course, I wasn't going to just be all cheesy and use Strauss. I wanted to be. I wanted the sort of my equivalent of his Strauss and make it epic. And so I came across this bit of music that was suggested to me by my next door neighbour. Actually, he just suggested it as have you heard this thing? It's amazing, And basically, it was Eric Whittaker's version of Lux Arumka. Right. I think he called it his virtual choir. There were like 287 voices from around the world, all singing their solo part, and then he put it together into this beautiful vocal kind of score. Now, it was a really beautiful piece of music, but I really liked the idea of a siren blaring in it.
We must explain that we're on the Vauxhall roundabout at the BIS. Yeah.
They're coming to take me away at last. No, it was a beautiful piece of music, but I really loved the idea that there were all these international voices. And during that sequence, Gene Cernan says these great words, which was, it was America going to the moon, but the whole world was on that spacecraft with us. Absolutely. And I just like that international flavour of the voices, all sort of, sending them on their way,
Yeah, I love extra bits. Yeah,
and that worked for me, and of course, I never did Latin at school, so I had to look it up. But Lux Arumque loosely means light and gold. And I think there's something about the sunlight reflecting on all the gold foil of the Apollo spacecraft, and I don't know, if you want to get into the deep arty-fartiness of it all, then that's where my head was at. So that was really the first bit of music that I wanted to use, and everything I think was built around that. Although of course, there were some sort of commercial pieces of music of the time to give it that sort of 50s or 60s flavour, but really, the skill of getting a good film score is that you need to sort of bind all these disparate elements together in a kind of theme. And that's where Lorne Balfe, the movie composer, and he's a very experienced one, that's where he was able to come in, look at the big picture of the film and try and score all the rest of the film so that it fit together somehow.
Yeah. Well, it's a fantastic film, and thank you very much for spending the time.
Thank you so much.
Because I know that you're about to give a talk now, so we've
actually just before you go, where can people go to watch the film or buy the film?
Well, you can go to the film's website, lastmanonthemoon.com. We have a pretty active Facebook, page as well. There's lots of information going on that on a regular basis.
I've watched it several times on Netflix. I have to say,
it's on Netflix. In the aftermath of his death, obviously there's some talk that at some point, partly as the wishes of the family and also our distributor and everything, there's increased interest, obviously, but there may well be a super special DVD in the not too distant future, because here's the thing. When an astronaut, and more to the point, a moonwalker, lets you into his world and, with cameras, I mean, believe me, we filmed, everything we possibly could. Of course, far too much for one feature-length documentary. So there is an awful lot of really great material that couldn't end up in the final film, which was painful for me to live with, but thank goodness for the advent of DVD extras, because of course,
So we'll cross our fingers for a second disc.
Yeah, at some point.
Fantastic.
Who knows when?
Maybe even the Gene Cernan cookbook. How he has his coffee.
Yeah.
Well, one thing he could have killed for was a hot coffee on the moon. They didn't. When the Gene Cernan cookbook, he would have laughed about that. Certainly squeezing food out of a tube, while you're in a pressure suit is not ideal.
No, good.
But anyway, I suppose
awesome.
I better go.
Up. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
It is
my pleasure.
Definitely one of my favourite films.
Thank you. No, great. I really appreciate that. It was my favourite film to make.
Brilliant.
And I don't know how, what I'm going to do next that will be as meaningful or fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks very much.
No worries. Cool. Nice one.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say that in the pub afterwards, Mark was sitting with me, and one of his projects that he wants to move on to next is the sort of emotional story about Apollo 1, and God, wouldn't that be fantastic if he does that? If he gets that project off the ground,
it would be amazing. And there's I don't think there's any reason why it won't happen. He said so. Let's hopefully look out for that one in the near future.
Yeah, and one of the things that really moved me actually last night was that he said that at Gene Cernan's one of the sort of memorial kind of services about Gene Cernan, he got a big hug from Tracy, who thanked him for making the film, and I thought, God, that's vindication if ever there was one. It's really, really,
Absolutely.
really cool, and for Gene Cernan himself to have seen a film about his life that's so beautifully done. Well done.
Oh,
well done,
Mark
Craig.
I'm so happy that he got to see the film, and it blew him away. He said he was quoted as saying to Mark, I didn't realise that was the sort of thing you were going to make. I think he thought it was going to be a kind of rough and ready documentary,
How cool was the bit
must
where
have blown him away.
One of the people that persuaded him to do it was Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford said,
Literally.
they're not filming you, they're filming your story, because he was a bit nervous about it. I mean, imagine that.
Oh, fantastic.
Imagine going for a pint with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, his mate
Gene
Harrison
Cernan.
Ford. Oh my God.
Blade Runner. Indiana Jones.
And the Man on the Moon.
Han Solo.
We don't use that. I was going to say, I like
and
the way we didn't
the
even
last
mention Han
Man
Solo.
on the Moon. The most rock and roll of them all.
Oh my gosh. Fantastic. So yeah, well, definitely check it out if you haven't already.
Matt,
I'm sure you have. Yes?
what's been happening in the world of space this week?
Yeah, well, let's quickly run through all the space shizzle
Fire
like we
'em up.
normally do. So one thing I thought was really, really cool, and this is something that you wanted to cover on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, Jamie. So
Oh, yeah.
I really wish we had now, but they've switched it on. They've switched on a huge, basically a worldwide telescope, which uses lots and lots and lots of different telescopes to go and observe the black hole at the centre of our galaxy. I thought
okay.
so that's pretty
So
cool.
they've switched it on. So have they got any data back
No,
yet?
I don't. Well, I'm sure they're getting data back right now, but I think it's on. I don't know how long it's on for, but we're going to report back on that one. So this could be
Amazing.
the first, literally, image of the black hole at the centre of our galaxy, which will be a phenomenal
should I be
achievement.
Should I be this excited about a
you
black
should-
hole? I'm sorry, but I am.
No. Well, when I was a kid, black holes hadn't even, it wasn't even a proved thing. But now it's like we talk about them like they're kind of like going to the shops. I mean, come on.
Do you want anything from the shop, Matt? Yeah, can I get a cornetto and a black hole, please?
And another thing that I think we really need to mention, because I got this in my news feed quite a few times, that people thought I should really see it, and I agree.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic little scientific paper that's been done that basically suggests that dark energy may not actually need to exist.
Right.
So, one of the weird things since about 98, and we've discussed this on the podcast before, is that we realised by measuring certain how far supernova were going away from us in various galaxies, that the universe, not only was it expanding, but the expansion was accelerating, and the only way to account for this is an energy that's causing this acceleration.
Yes.
And when you translate that energy into mass, E equals mc squared, it turns out that mass is 68% of the known universe, which is a bit
I was
embarrassing.
just about to say,
It's a bit embarrassing that we don't know what 68% of the universe is made of.
Yeah.
So it's always been one of those massive things. But this is based that. Assumption about 68% is based on the lambda cold dark matter model, which is the accepted model at the moment.
It's one of my favourites.
Yeah, well, and computer scientists have sat down and they've realised that no, actually, you can simulate this galaxy formation and the way that they do it, with where galaxies are found on the thin walls of each bubble and large pockets, etc. So, and it turns out that you don't necessarily need dark energy, and that you get consistent results without dark energy. So that's one to look for. Obviously, it's only one paper, and the standard model of this, the lambda cold dark matter model, is lots and lots of papers and won a Nobel Prize. So it's a long way from turning that over, but it's an interesting little paper. And nevertheless, and I knew I had to mention it because so many people had sent this.
Oh, it's definitely got to be mentioned.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And of course, following on from last week's genius Falcon 9 landing, we've got there's a lot of photos now of the orbital rocket coming back to Cape Canaveral.
Where can people see them, Matt?
I think now there's some. Well, I'll tell you where the best ones are that I've seen so far. Is on americaspace.com. There's some fantastic photos on there. But I mean, obviously SpaceX have been publishing a lot of these, but they're just really nice to see this thing. You know, this thing's been to space, been to space twice now. So that's not bad, is it?
It's not bad at all. What an achievement.
So well done them. So that's
well
that's a piece of history, and I think that'll be an amazing piece of history. And talking of history,
here we go.
New Horizons that went past Pluto, which I cannot believe was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's gone quick, right?
That's crazy, isn't it? That's like twice as long ago as the podcast has been running. I almost think that we covered this, but
when I say it's gone quickly, I don't mean the probe, which I assume, Matt, is going at about 770,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think you're about right. I think that's
just throwing it out there.
Well, and it's 3.5 billion miles away now, which means it's halfway. It's reached its halfway point to the Kuiper Belt object it's going to next. And Alan Stern, the principal investigator for New Horizons at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado, said, "It's fantastic to have completed half the journey to our next flyby. That flyby will set the record for the most distant world ever explored in the history of civilization."
Was he from Wales?
Yeah. I forgot to say boyo at the end.
Hello, Milander.
It's a civilization
boyo.
What is that?
Oh, I don't know.
No, right. Anyway,
I don't know.
I'm going to go into a bit of geeky rocket stuff now, Jamie. I know you love it. I know you love it.
Do you have to?
No, I'm going to skim over this. But
we'll be the judge of that. Go on then.
Quite a lot.
I'm timing you.
Quite a lot of rocket stuff happened this week. Well, I learned about a bit of stuff.
Right.
Some of it like surprising, some of it not so surprising. So Aerojet Rocketdyne. Rocketdyne, obviously the big rocket manufacturer, have been showing off the fact that they've been managing to create a lot of the parts of their classic RL-10 rocket engine using 3D printing. So that's so that it's like they're creating the RL-10, and just what's amazing about the RL-10, that's been involved in 475 flights.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's always the kind of upper stage choice of NASA's missions.
That's the standard.
Every planet in the solar system.
Wow.
So it's a very, very, very reliable engine, and it's going to be on the upper stages of the SLS. So, and obviously they're continually improving it, and one of the ways they're doing it is to do a bit of 3D printing.
I tell you what, 3D printing has really taken off. Excuse the pun, but it has.
Yes, nice. Now, in bad news for Aerojet Rocketdyne, United Launch Alliance, the ULA, are leaning towards Jeff Bezos's BE-4 engine rather than one made by Aerojet Rocketdyne, the AR-1.
Okay.
So it looks like they might lose that contract. That actually, this is something that's not really a surprise to insiders. They kind of knew this was happening.
I'm not surprised.
I know you're not surprised, but you're totally up on it. Now, talking of Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
he said on Wednesday that he's selling about £1 billion worth of his Amazon stock annually to fund his Blue Origin rocket company. I mean, what?
Oh, so I wonder how many years of that 1 billion he's got. I mean, I know that Amazon are multi-billion company, but how many are we talking here?
It's quite a lot. And but what's funny is the new Glenn rocket that we've seen, the big old the basically SLS equivalent, your heavy lifter. The development cost for that are sort of $2.5 billion. How about that?
Yeah. You would need to start selling stuff.
Yep. And so, And
what could we sell, Matt? I mean, maybe a few guitars, some books. You've got some Star Wars figures, haven't you?
Yeah, so I reckon I can cobble together about 30 quid.
We could get some money. I've
got an old Samsung S4.
We just need a 3D printer now, and we can start making rockets.
Well, Orbital ATK, I guess, are going down that route because they're also developing a rocket to compete with SpaceX and United Launch Alliance. So there we go. So there's another one. Now,
there we go.
Gwynne Shotwell, of course, as the SpaceX CEO,
big time.
Said this week that she wants to get the Falcon 9 reuse down to 24 hours, and that's when they know that this is valid. And so this is what she said. She said, our challenge right now is to refly a rocket within 24 hours. That's when we'll really feel like we got the reusability just right. I don't know whether she speaks like that, Jamie, but
she might not speak like a 1950s English school teacher.
No,
but that's all right.
I'm really jealous of all those podcasters that went to the 33rd Space Symposium. I know a couple of them. I
saw that photo and I wanted to be there.
Yeah, I really want to be there. But we weren't, so that's that. But
can we go to Cape Canaveral soon, please?
We should definitely. We're going on a Cape Canaveral trip soon. It
has to be. Let's do it. A thing.
We need our Patreon supporters. Not that we've got a Patreon page, but if we did, then maybe they can fund it for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's do that. Let's just see if we can use the podcast as a way of getting summer holidays.
Well, of course. Yeah, standard. The least we can do.
Oh, yeah, it is. That's,
it's the only reason I do it.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort in this. Shotwell didn't specify the exact cost of the refurbishment, but she said it was substantially less than half of the original manufacturing cost. Isn't that exciting?
Wow, interesting. That's amazing. That's going to save some cash.
And Shotwell said at least one piece of the fairing was recovered from the Atlantic Ocean after last week's launch. And although she didn't say whether it was slated for reuse, it looked pretty good, she said. And you'll see more fairing recoveries as we go this year, which is brilliant, isn't it? So we eventually did get some news about the fairing. So, they managed to retrieve a little bit of one of them.
I think it's wonderful.
Because even though these just look like panels, they are actually quite expensive, apparently.
Oh, of course they are. I mean,
they're off a rocket, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So, in other SpaceX news, drink. SpaceX are going to launch Falcon Heavy later on this year with 2 flight-proven boosters, as they're now called, rather than reused or second-hand, as the BBC like to refer to them. So, flight-proven, I suppose, does sound slightly better, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And Musk said, our expectation is probably a late summer launch of Falcon Heavy. And this is my favourite quote of the week. Falcon Heavy is one of those things that at first it sounded easy. We'll just take 2 first stages and use them as strap-on boosters. And actually, no, this is crazy hard. And required a redesign of the centre core and a ton of additional hardware. It was actually shockingly difficult to go from a single core to a triple core vehicle.
Wow.
No shizzle, Musk boy. Right, so there we go.
But you know what I like about him? He's the first to say it, isn't he? Whereas that there's other companies that would just be like, don't say it, tell him it was all the part of the plan.
Yeah, it's all part of the plan. Richard Branson, your mate Richard.
Oh yeah, what's he up to, old Dickie?
Well, he's aiming for the first space flight this year.
This year?
Yeah, so it's going to be this...
With people?
With people. I think it's going to be a test flight. So Richard Branson said, and I'm going to try and do an impression. What do you think?
Okay, here we go. Third time lucky.
I'm going to try and do posh English, but it's kind of... I think that I'd be very disappointed if we're not into space with a test flight by the end of the year. And I'm not into space myself next year, and the programme isn't well underway by the end of next year. Is that a good impression of Richard Branson?
I'll say that was, yes.
No, it was terrible, Jamie. It was terrible.
It was really bad. It was really bad.
The test programme is going really well, and as long as we've got our brave test pilots pushing it to the limit, we think that after whatever it is, 12 years of hard work, we're nearly there.
It's getting camper.
Yeah. Well,
what are you doing?
I don't know. So
sorry, everyone. Matt's had a glass of rosé, and he gets like...
I tell you what's brilliant.
Yeah.
The pub here serves mild. I haven't had a pint of mild for ages, so I got really excited, Jamie.
That is a dad quote, if ever I heard one.
I know. Mild, everyone.
Pint of mild.
I'm telling you now, if I'm not right...
For our foreign listeners, can you explain mild?
Mild is a type of beer like IPA or London Pale Ale or bitter or lager. But mild has fallen right off the map. But I've got a brilliant feeling that it's just about to come back into fashion. And
you heard
it on this podcast first.
Here we go.
But anyway, it's brilliant.
Timestamp that.
Yeah, timestamped. Matt set the trend. I don't know if I want to be known for someone that set the trend for beer, though. Unless it's beer in space.
Yeah, then that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but apparently Budweiser or Beck's are talking about setting up a brewery on Mars. I don't know if that was for publicity.
No.
Anyway, one of my favourite... this is the last story, Jamie. This is the last story of the week. Because, we don't want to make this too long, this podcast. I think we had such a win-win with Mark, the lovely Mark.
We absolutely did.
So that, just leave our listeners alone to soak that up. Let's soak that glory up. So, my favourite story of the week is that... one of our favourites, Peggy Whitson,
yes,
has been given a 3-month extension to her mission on the International Space Station.
That's awesome. Another 3 months. So that will make what? How long in total?
A long time.
How long has she already been up there? Do you know?
I don't know. I guess hasn't she been up there for 3 months already? Do you know what? I thought
it might have been. Well, I thought it was 6 originally, and then this will make it 9. Oh, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. I must admit, I actually don't know, but it's...
Please let us know, listeners.
But one of the reasons why she's staying up is because only 2 people are going up on the next launch.
From Russia.
Yeah. No, it's not just Russians, is it?
I think it's 2 Russians rather than 3 are going up, hence she's staying on.
Oh, okay.
But I will confirm that.
And so...
Wow. So I wonder if she's got... how many more spacewalks she's going to potentially be doing then.
Yeah,
because she's already got the record.
Yeah. Yeah,
she has. She might be doing it. What's the record for the male spacewalks?
I don't know, but all I know is she's about to break the record full stop of cumulative days in space, which is currently held by Jeff Williams, who only got it recently with 534.
Oh, wow.
And she's going to become the first woman to command the space station twice. She's the only woman to command the space station, and she's the only woman to command it twice.
Long may it continue. Well done, Peggy.
Let's face it, Peggy Whitson is an absolute legend of space.
Complete legend.
So, thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys. And
next week, we shall be tackling Marcus once more into the breach, we should say.
Yes, so make sure you still keep sending us in your rebuttals. They're brilliant.
Absolutely.
And
get them in.
He can't say anything.
No, because we've had some really, really good ones.
We can't promise it will change his mind, but we can promise...
I think we will.
It might be a short answer.
No, and listeners, I know it's annoying, but imagine that if this podcast went out and that there was one of these people that was umming and ahhing about the moon hoax, and then they listened to our podcast... and they realise that, of course, it's a ridiculous point of view.
And actually, as you said yesterday, Matt, if you can change somebody's mind to believe we did go to space, which we all know is true, then wouldn't it be lovely to be part of that club that you can just reap the benefits of knowing that we did such an unbelievable thing?
Well, of course, that was Mark's answer about Gene and the fact that Gene Cernan basically sort of said, well, they're the ones missing out.
Missing out.
They're
Absolutely.
the ones missing out. And on that note, Jamie, I'm going to say bye-bye.
Okay, Matt, bye.